Please rewind this cassette.
All right, let's talk about episode 2. This episode starts with the shitty and unfunny newsreel that introduces the name She Hulk. So she goes to a bar to celebrate, and oh my god, does the CGI look really bad here. I mean, it looked bad before, but this shockingly stands out. I mean, it never feels like she's actually in the bar or any environment throughout this episode. The whole thing's off. And I didn't really criticize the CGI that much early on, but immediately in episode 2, I'm like, this is way worse than some of the CGI in episode 1. I just don't think the lighting with her in the natural environments worked as well as as it did on the island with Bruce and how bright everything was. I think kind of smoothed out some of it. Then her boss shows up and tells her she lost the case because she hulked out. This also confirms that she's bad at her job. So he fires her for now being a liability. So, in a world of superheroes, now everyone's scared of a Hulk. Remember in Endgame how Bruce was a celebrity that people would take photos with? Why are we trying to present this in the MCU? Like, I respect the writers trying to give her some kind of struggle or adversity, but considering we never got to see her be a lawyer, it's hard to care about this happening. Like, this should have been built up to over a couple episodes. But since they rushed everything, I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this. Like, okay, she turned into the Hulk, now she's fired. I don't have a sense of what she lost because I haven't spent any time with her doing that job, so it's kind of meaningless. Then she talks to her father in a scene that's like trying to be quirky and funny with her family. She talks about a weight being lifted, like this was something we saw her struggling with. In fact, it could have been good to see her hide that She Hulk form in between working at a law firm, but we didn't get to see any of that when she's like, oh, a big weight's been lifted. I'm like, what? You just became Hulk what, 2 days ago? So how long have you been dealing with this? Oh, never mind. In the following scene, she gets offered a new job. And so this entire opening now feels pointless, just like everything that came before. Now she's going to work at a law firm for superhuman law. Now that's a fun idea. The show has been insanely underwritten up to this point, and we continue to jump forward without any organic storytelling beats. Also, I know that comedy's subjective, but honestly, where's the jokes? Did nobody do a pass on any of the dialogue? A little punch up would have gone a long way to help smooth out some of the rough edges of the show. But most of the jokes are just very banal or minor. You're not even going to get a chuckle out of it. I respect that the actors are trying kind of, but clearly none of them have much material to work with, so their performances just aren't very formed. Oh, look, a Silence of the Lambs reference. Oh, and then she references it in dialogue. You weren't making your ripoff painfully obvious before she said that. This has me really scared for the writing of Deadpool 3 or any time that Disney's going to try to do something meta from this point forward. Tim Roth's back, and to be honest, it's kind of nice to see him. The scene also explores a bit of grayness within the MCU, the role of the government and how we view who is good and bad. It's one of the only times in recent MCU media that I felt some level of continuity within the universe. She follows up by asking Bruce for permission in another scene that feels like it was created for Wiki Feet fans. Like, dear God, she's barefoot in every other scene in the show. I don't know what's going on with this foot fetish stuff. Beyond that though, she's talking to Hulk and Bruce actually says She Hulk attorney at law at one point. I guess this was supposed to be a show made for small children. Perhaps I've judged it on the wrong scale. Bruce is flying in an alien ship after the first episode where aliens show up, or I don't know if this is a subplot that's happening in another MCU movie or show and it's going to tie into this, or if this is all building up to what this show's about. Like, is this leading us to a possible thing in Guardians of the Galaxy or something? I'm not really sure. It is just, they just cut away to stuff and there's something happening and it's supposed to be like, oh, I wonder what's going on with that adventure. It's very odd and very lazy on top of that. Oh, do you remember how just like a minute ago I said we were exploring this complex idea with the abomination? Well, they rush past that and have him escape to fight people. This is supposed to work as a sort of punchline, a cliffhanger, But once again, it takes all of the weight out of anything that the writers are trying to establish. It's not a bad idea to have her get to like this character, and then eventually he breaks out and we find out there's more to it. But they're doing this in like 22-minute long episodes. I mean, it said 38 minutes on Disney Plus, but I timed it out and the episode ends way before that. So at the same time, it's like everything's so underwritten. By the time these first 2 episodes end, I'm just sitting there going like, "I don't feel anything. This is the most kind of bland, generic television." I mean, I don't know how any of this stuff got approved. Now to focus on some criticisms, that have been established towards people who don't like the show, as usual, instead of looking at maybe why the show is so polarizing, people go for the easy bailout and claim it's insecure men mad at anything with a strong female character. One, this isn't a strong female character. Hell, she's hardly even a character at all. So far, she's done very little as either She Hulk or as Jennifer Walters. We've seen this person accomplish nothing, and anytime she does do something, they just reset everything back to the beginning. So she doesn't actually do anything. It's not like she earns this job at the new law firm. She just gets it because she's the She-Hulk. That's all. And they have a second where she's like, maybe I don't want to get the job for that reason. And then they don't do anything with it. Once again, they just end on the punchline with the abomination joke. Beyond that, though, this attempt to flip the current anti Hollywood movement as something that is just sexism, conveniently always deflecting an opportunity to actually defend the show or explain why it's good. I have yet to hear anyone who loves the show give a good reason why it isn't, bad and has terrible writing, terrible character development, and nothing about it's really that thought out, and there's kind of a lack of logic for everything going on. You just see these posts on Twitter about, oh, look at this trend of men attacking things with strong female characters. They hate Black Widow, they hate Captain Marvel. It's like, this is obvious that you guys have no defense for this. You could just say, hey, yeah, maybe the show isn't very good. We should have higher standards. But no, it has to be this bullshit narrative that I thought died years ago, that every time a bad piece of media comes out with a woman in it, automatically people don't like it because a woman's in it. No lie, I got into an argument on Twitter, I know, very mature, right? After pointing out the success of shows like The Queen's Gambit, where a woman beats all the best chess players in the world, who happen to be men. By the way, this is a fictional story. This did not happen. I've read the book and seen the show. She drinks, she does drugs, she has sex with whoever she wants. People told me that that's because chess players are less insecure than lawyers. What the fuck are we talking about anymore? Like, any rational person, if they say people don't like the show because there's a woman in it and she's a strong character, and then you go, well, what about the Queen's Gambit? That didn't get review bombs. Nobody attacked that show. I don't remember any controversy about it. In fact, it popularized chess again for a short amount of time. And that's because honestly, the source material wasn't that bad and they did a good job with the character, and she gives a very good performance in it. This is bad, and everyone's like, oh, wow, this is a terrible MCU show. And for some reason, people just try to defend it with this blanket statement that we don't like it because she's a woman, as if this was a male character, we would automatically like the show. The narrative spin has creeped into other things too, like the League of Their Own show, which also got review bombed by incels. I had to point out that the original movie was a huge hit. It made over $100 million, and it was big with both men and women, and it's remained a classic to sports fans. You know what the people said back to me? That the movie wasn't woke enough because it ignored the lesbians and black characters in the real life story. Great idea. Let's attack Penny Marshall, the first female director to make $100 million movie, for not making a progressive enough movie in 1992. I've heard this all before with Ray, Ghostbusters 2016, Captain Marvel. The irony being that it isn't true that men always attack female led IPs, but that certain people always seem to show up to defend poorly written projects that happen to star women. Yet they never defend the poorly written shows and movies that we don't like starring men. You talk about a 1-star review bomb from trolls. What about critics who give this kind of stuff an automatic pass before they actually give a real review because they don't want to be controversial? Remember when Ghostbusters 2016 had 73% on Rotten Tomatoes? Even She Hulk has a 67 on Metacritic. It's actually not getting very good reviews, but you could tell that it would get even worse reviews if it wasn't for the fact that it was a female character and these critics don't want to attack it for that reason. Obviously, the show should have like a 47 or something, but if you just read the reviews, it's people giving it a pass or like a mixed positive review because they simply don't want to like bite the bullet and say, "Yeah, this show fucking sucks." So Mark Ruffalo can post on Twitter, "It's made the IMDb rating system pointless and meaningless because if people just, review bomb one-star reviews, well then what about when people give 10 out of 10 reviews on IMDb? Doesn't that make it meaningless? And also, why are we holding IMDb to this standard? Like, did you fucking forget that the number one rated movie on there is The Shawshank Redemption? I like that movie, but is it the greatest film of all time because it's on IMDb? I don't fucking think so. I mean, just accept that these are major IPs. It's not necessarily political, even though you guys make it political. You have to understand, people are mad because they're fans of Star Wars, or they're mad because they're fans of the MCU. It's not always about vagina and dicks. A lot of the time, it's because you care about the mythology, you care about the characters, you care about the fucking world, and it means a lot to you. And I'm not even that hardcore of a fan of a lot of these things, but I know a lot of people are. And then they just try to treat them like crap because they're upset because maybe they wanted a good adaptation of She-Hulk because they're a fan of the character. Who are you making this stuff for?
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.